The crystal flute of champagne caught the light as Gavin raised it high, his white teeth flashing in a smile that looked like it had been rehearsed in a mirror. "Here's to the future," he announced, his tone smooth as silk, rehearsed to perfection. "Technology is our horizon." With the arrival of our Nexus automation and AI-driven management, Northrise Apparel is set to lead the industry for decades. We are reinventing not just how we do business, but who we are. The words bounced off the walls of the conference room. A long mahogany table gleamed under the fluorescent lights, polished to the point where the reflection of the champagne glasses looked sharper than reality. Around that table, dozens of employees, managers, directors, analysts clapped politely, the kind of clapping that wasn't really celebration but obligation. Gavin shifted his gaze toward me, his eyes narrowing into the shape of professional sincerity. "And let us not forget the person who helped bring us this far. The woman who has been here since the early days, who laid the foundation for the systems that carried us to where we stand today." A round of applause, everyone, for Vita Lewis. Hands met together again, some louder than others. I saw a few colleagues glance in my direction, then immediately look away, guilt tugging at their expressions. I smiled, the kind of smile you practice when you've had to live inside boardrooms for too long, polite, controlled, giving nothing away. My fingers curled tighter around the small black notebook I kept on my lap, the only personal item I had carried with me after emptying out my office the day before. 25 years of history had been reduced to 3 cardboard boxes, now sitting in the back seat of my car. "My name is Vita Lewis," I thought silently, not aloud, because I doubted anyone in this room truly cared anymore. "I gave this company a quarter of a century of my life. I built the backbone you're standing on. But today, I was a prop in someone else's speech." Flashback. The early days. When I first walked through the doors of what was then West Coast Threads back in 1998, it wasn't this slick corporate empire. It was a dusty converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and 23 employees, most of whom were constantly carrying fabric bolts or arguing over distribution schedules. They didn't call me data architect back then. That title didn't even exist in most apparel companies. I was just the computer lady. The one who set up servers in the corner, writing custom code at a desk piled with half-empty coffee cups. But it was my systems that allowed a scrappy little clothing distributor to grow into a billion-dollar empire. I created the first centralized database that tracked every garment, every shipment, every invoice. I designed redundancies when everyone else thought backups were unnecessary. I patched disasters before anyone noticed they had happened. In those early years, the founder, Thomas Green, would stop by my desk. He was the kind of leader who shook every hand and remembered birthdays. "You think of things the rest of us miss, Vita," he once told me. "That's why we need you." For decades, I believed him. I believed loyalty mattered. The retirement. Gavin's voice pulled me back into the present. "Vita has seen this company grow from a regional distributor to a national leader," he continued, his tone dripping with artificial enthusiasm. "She's been with us through it all, and now she embarks on a new chapter, her well-deserved retirement." Retirement. The word hit like a hammer to the chest. I was 59, not 75. I wasn't ready to sit on a porch, knitting sweaters. But 3 weeks ago, in his ergonomically perfect chair, Gavin had leaned back with his MBA smugness and told me, "The Nexus system will streamline operations, Vita. Your role is unfortunately redundant under the new structure." Redundant. After 25 years. Around the table now, people kept clapping, pretending this was a celebration. But I saw it in their eyes, the recognition that this wasn't a farewell party. This was a ritual sacrifice. The old guard being stripped away to make room for the shiny future. My grip tightened on the black notebook. Inside were handwritten pages of knowledge that no server could replicate, emergency overrides, backdoor fixes, the quirks of our custom-built logistics. I had always kept a record, just in case. And now, as Gavin raised his glass and smiled at me, I realized those pages might matter more than anyone in this room suspected. That evening, when the applause finally died down and the meaningless cake had been cut, I walked out of Northrise Apparel for the last time. My cardboard boxes sat heavy in my arms as I crossed the parking lot, the Sacramento sun glaring down on me. Later, on my porch with a glass of red wine in hand, I watched the sunset burn orange across the sky. My house, my modest two-bedroom craftsman in Midtown, had been mine since '98, back when it was affordable. Now its value had soared, just like the company's had. I could sell it tomorrow and retire comfortably. But retirement wasn't in my plans. The truth was, I had no idea what my next move would be. For years, my identity was Northrise. My fingerprints were on every piece of its nervous system. And now, they were telling me the future didn't include me. I flipped open my black notebook. Pages filled with my handwriting stared back. Scribbles, diagrams, strings of code, notes about warehouse protocols. 25 years condensed into ink. They think they can replace me with software, I muttered aloud, almost laughing at the absurdity. But inside, a fire began to burn. Arrival of trouble. It didn't take long. Barely a week after my departure, I got the first message. Jerome, one of the younger system analysts I had mentored years ago, sent me a text. Systems glitching. New AI team can't figure out why inventory isn't reconciling with shipping logs. Total mess. I stared at the screen for a long moment before setting it down. I didn't reply. The following day, Bethany from accounting called. Vita, the quarterly reporting module, is pulling numbers that don't match sales. The new team says it's an integration hiccup, but I know it's deeper. Can you? I'm sure the transition team will manage, I interrupted, keeping my tone cool. But the Nexus system is still using your architecture as its backbone, she said quickly. Nobody understands the crosslinks like you do. I sighed. Bethany had always been kind to me. But kindness couldn't erase betrayal. I've moved on, I told her. My consulting schedule is full. That wasn't a lie. Just 24 hours after my severance cleared, my phone rang with an unexpected name. Philip Donovan, co-founder of Donovan and Mills Logistics. Northrise's biggest West Coast competitor. At the head of the long mahogany table stood Gavin Ross, Chief Executive Officer, fresh-faced, tall, hair slicked back with an arrogance that only a 30-something MBA could perfect. He raised his glass and said the words that turned my 25 years into a single line. Here's to the future. With Nexus automation, with AI-driven systems, with the courage to embrace change, Northrise Apparel will lead the industry for decades. We are reinventing who we are. Polite applause filled the room. Polite, hollow, cowardly. And let us not forget, Gavin continued, smiling as though this was his own idea of generosity, the woman who brought us here. The one who helped build the backbone of this company. The incomparable Vita Lewis. The applause grew slightly louder, but no warmer. People clapped with eyes downcast, glancing at me then away, like children caught stealing cookies. I stood at the far end of the table, notebook on my lap, lips curved into a professional smile I had perfected decades ago. The kind of smile that said, I'm fine. This doesn't hurt at all. Inside, every clap struck me like a nail hammered into wood. Retirement, they called it. I was 59. My hands still steady, my mind sharper than ever, my systems still running. But Gavin had decided I was redundant. Raise your glasses, Gavin said. To Vita, thank you for your service. Service. As though I'd been a maid in his house. Memory, 1998. The clinking glasses blurred into the smell of dust and fabric dye. Suddenly, I was back in 1998, walking into a converted warehouse with bare brick walls and 23 employees. The company wasn't Northrise Apparel then, it was West Coast Threads, a struggling distributor. Computer lady, they called me because no one else could make sense of servers. I had one desk, one ancient beige tower PC, and a dream, to build a system that could see every shipment, every order, every warehouse shelf. I wrote code at midnight, drinking coffee from chipped mugs. When trucks broke down on the I-5, it was my system that rerouted them before customers noticed. Back then, the founder, Thomas Green, would stop by my desk. He smelled of cigars and wool suits. You think ahead, Vita, he told me once, resting a hand on my shoulder. You see disasters before they happen. That's why this place will survive. I believed him. I believed loyalty was currency. Back to the present. The applause faded. My name was swallowed by the boardroom chatter. Someone sliced the farewell cake, a cheap white sheet cake with "Thank you, Vita" written in blue frosting, letters smudged like they'd been rushed. I shook hands. I accepted polite smiles. I told people, "I'll miss you too," though the words felt like ash in my mouth. By evening, I was outside in the Sacramento sun, 3 cardboard boxes of my career balanced in my arms. Porch reflections. That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of Merlot, watching the sky bleed orange and purple. My little craftsman house in Midtown had been mine since '98, back when houses cost less than loyalty. Now it was worth a fortune. I could sell tomorrow, retire comfortably, fade away like they wanted me to. But as I opened my black notebook, flipping through handwritten notes of system quirks, code fragments, emergency overrides, a thought pulsed in my mind. They think they replaced me. They don't even know how fragile their castle really is. The fire in my chest told me one thing. I wasn't done. The first cracks. It started within days. Jerome, a young analyst I once mentored, texted me at 11:47 p.m. Inventory not reconciling. Nexus keeps duplicating entries. New team panicking. I didn't reply. The next day, Bethany from accounting called. Her voice trembled. Vita, quarterly numbers don't match sales. The new AI integration's broken. Can you? I've moved on, I said flatly. But no one understands the crosslinks like you do. Nexus is built on your old architecture. I ended the call before she could finish. They wanted me gone. Fine. Let them drown. The unexpected call. 2 days later, my phone rang again. A name flashed on the screen. Philip Donovan. Donovan and Mills Logistics. Northrise's biggest West Coast competitor. Vita Lewis? His voice was deep, confident, practiced. This is Philip Donovan. I heard about your early retirement. I'd like to meet. I hesitated, staring at the black notebook on my desk. Why? I asked. Because people like you don't just vanish. And because Northrise is about to find out what happens when they cut out their own heart. The meeting. Philip's office downtown was everything Northrise's sterile boardroom wasn't. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in golden sunlight. Mahogany shelves lined with books and model ships. A Persian rug underfoot that smelled faintly of cedar. He greeted me with a warm handshake, not the performative kind Gavin favored. His suit was immaculate, but his eyes, sharp, dark, studied me like an equal. I'll be direct, he said, gesturing for me to sit. Northrise let go of its most valuable asset. Their new AI will take years to stabilize if it ever does. You know the architecture better than anyone alive. I want you here. I raised an eyebrow. As what? A consultant. As a strategist. A builder. A partner. He leaned forward. We're expanding into international markets. With your systems knowledge, we can leapfrog Northrise in under 2 years. My lips curled into a faint smile. You make it sound easy. Philip chuckled. Not easy, but possible. With you, very possible. I thought of Gavin's smug toast, the hollow applause, the word redundant. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. Seeds of revenge. That night, back on my porch, I closed the black notebook and whispered into the warm evening air. They wanted me gone. Instead, they've set me free. The fire inside me spread, hot and unstoppable. It was no longer about retirement. It wasn't even about starting over. It was about building something stronger, faster, smarter, and watching Northrise crumble under the weight of its arrogance. And I would enjoy every second. Philip Donovan wasn't like Gavin. He didn't need to posture or rehearse his charisma. His power was quiet, deliberate, sharpened over decades of deals. On my second day at Donovan and Mills, he gave me no glossy speeches, no artificial toasts. Just a stack of reports, a private office overlooking downtown, and a simple instruction. Tell me where the cracks are. Show me how to turn them into doors. The reports were detailed: global shipping delays, supply chain choke points, Northrise's over-reliance on AI-driven inventory. It was like looking at a blueprint of a building I had designed, except now I was spotting every weak beam, every brittle joint. By midnight, I had 27 pages of notes. My handwriting was tighter than ever, adrenaline pushing the pen across paper like fire. A new team. At Northrise, I had been the backbone. At Donovan and Mills, Philip built me a team. 5 analysts, 3 engineers, 2 logistics veterans. Bright-eyed, hungry, and most importantly, respectful. When I explained something, they listened. When I drew diagrams on the glass wall of the conference room, they scribbled notes like students at a lecture. One of them, a wiry young coder named Lien, said on my 3rd day, "You think like a machine, Vita. But you explain like a teacher. It's rare." I didn't know how to respond. Compliments at Northrise had always come wrapped in condescension. This one felt different. Northrise in trouble. Meanwhile, Northrise was unraveling. Philip had eyes everywhere: insiders, market analysts, even delivery contractors willing to whisper. Every evening, he slid a folder across my desk. Shipment delays in Nevada. Warehouse 3 offline for 48 hours. Quarterly report. Numbers don't add up. Each failure lined up with a note from my black notebook. The quirks and risks I had warned them about for years, the very ones Gavin's AI couldn't anticipate. One evening, Philip leaned back in his leather chair, smirking. "Your absence is costing them millions already. Do you miss it?" I swirled my wine glass, watching the dark liquid spiral. Miss it?
No.
But I can't deny the satisfaction. Flashback. Gavin's promise. Sometimes, though, memories slipped in. Gavin in his first year as CEO, barely 30, sitting in my office. "You'll always have a place here, Vita. People like you don't retire. They become legends." And yet, a decade later, he cut me off with a word. Redundant. The memory stung, but it also hardened me. Legends don't fade. Legends burn brighter when underestimated. Building the counterweight. At Donovan and Mills, I built something stronger than Northrise had ever dreamed. Instead of relying purely on automation, I fused AI with human override systems, fail-safes, redundancies, cross-checks only experienced people could trigger. I trained analysts to see patterns, not just read dashboards. Within 6 months, Donovan and Mills was running leaner and faster. Philip called it the Phoenix system. But privately, I called it resurgence. Northrise crumbles further. News traveled fast. Police Garlight Northrise recalls entire winter line due to distribution error. Police Garlight shareholders demand explanation for Q2 losses. Police Garlight CEO Gavin Ross promises temporary setbacks amid system overhaul. I cut out the headlines and pinned them on my office board, each one like a trophy. My team noticed. Lien once asked, half joking, "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I smiled. Enjoying?
No.
But I'm remembering that loyalty doesn't mean blindness. And they taught me that the hard way. A visitor from the past. Then, one evening, someone unexpected showed up at my porch. Bethany, my old friend from Northrise's accounting. She looked thinner, more exhausted than I remembered. "Vita," she said softly, holding back tears. "It's chaos over there. People are scared. The AI doesn't work. Gavin's blaming everyone," and she lowered her voice. "They keep asking about you. Some even say they want you back." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "They had their chance." Bethany reached for my hand. "I know, but I had to ask. You were the soul of that place." Her words stayed with me long after she left.
Soul.
Was that what I had been? A soul discarded, replaced by circuits and promises? The turning point. Philip called me into his office the next week. "We're ready," he said. "With your system, we can undercut their holiday season distribution. Strike now, and Northrise won't recover." I stared out at the Sacramento skyline. My mind replayed 25 years, the dusty warehouse, the long nights, the loyalty, the betrayal. And then Gavin's smug smile, at the farewell toast. I turned back to Philip, my voice steady as steel. Let's burn them.
Vita reborn.
That night, I wrote in my black notebook. They thought I was finished. But I am not ashes. I am fire. For the first time in years, I didn't feel discarded. I felt reborn. Not as an employee, not as a retiree, but as the force that would dismantle Northrise Apparel piece by arrogant piece. The collapse begins. Winter quarter hit Northrise like a storm. Their new AI-driven distribution failed spectacularly during the holiday rush. Shipments were delayed, mislabeled, or sent to the wrong regions. Customers raged online. Retailers canceled contracts. Shareholders smelled blood. Philip placed the newspaper on my desk one morning. The headline screamed, "Police Garlight Northrise stock plummets 35% in 1 week." He raised an eyebrow. The phoenix rises as the giant falls. You should feel proud, Vita. I traced the headline with my finger. Proud?
Yes.
But also vindicated. For years, they ignored my warnings, replaced me with algorithms. Now their arrogance was eating them alive. The boardroom in flames. Insiders leaked audio recordings to the press. Gavin's voice, usually smooth and controlled, was caught shouting during a board meeting. This is temporary. Do you hear me? Temporary setbacks. We don't need Vita Lewis. She's obsolete. The future doesn't belong to dinosaurs. Hearing him spit my name like poison almost made me laugh. Obsolete? And yet their empire was collapsing without me. An old friend reaches out. Bethany called again, her voice more desperate this time. Vita, it's over there. People are resigning. Warehouses are locked down. Gavin's hiding in his office, lashing out at everyone. We need. You need what? I interrupted. The same woman your company cast aside? She was silent, then whispered, We need you to see what's become of the place you built. Returning to Northrise. Against my better judgment, I drove to Northrise headquarters the next morning. The once bustling lobby was half empty. The receptionist's smile was gone, replaced by weary eyes. Monitors flickered with error messages instead of dashboards. When I stepped into the boardroom, a hush fell. Executives who once clapped politely at my farewell now looked hollow, defeated. Gavin sat at the head of the table, his tie loosened, his face pale. Well, he sneered, though his voice cracked. Look who decided to visit. Come to gloat, Vita? I set my black notebook on the table and leaned forward. I didn't need to gloat, Gavin. You did this all by yourself. The confrontation. The room held its breath. Gavin's eyes burned with humiliation. You think you're some savior, he snapped. You're a relic. I gave this company a future. I opened the notebook, flipping through pages of handwritten system notes. The future? This company's future was built on what you're holding in contempt. Every success you bragged about was designed by me, tested by me, sustained by me. You replaced decades of experience with a machine you barely understood. His fists clenched. So what? You joined Donovan. You stabbed us in the back. I met his glare without flinching.
No, Gavin.
You stabbed me first. You discarded me like I was nothing. You told me loyalty was worthless. I only learned the lesson you taught me. Silence. Only the hum of failing monitors filled the room. The death blow. I closed the notebook and slid it toward him. Inside are the fixes you'll never have. The solutions I once kept for emergencies. I carried this for 25 years. But it doesn't belong here anymore. I stood. You wanted me gone. Now you'll see what Northrise looks like without me. As I walked out, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the empire burning behind me. Northrise falls. Within 3 months, Northrise Apparel filed for bankruptcy protection. Retail partners fled. Competitors, including Donovan and Mills, devoured their market share. News outlets dissected the downfall, calling it a case study in corporate arrogance. Gavin resigned in disgrace, his reputation in ashes. Vita's new dawn. Meanwhile, at Donovan and Mills, my Phoenix system thrived. We expanded into Asia, then Europe. Efficiency soared, profits doubled. Philip raised a glass one evening at the rooftop lounge. To Vita Lewis, the woman who turned fire into rebirth. This time, the applause around me wasn't hollow. It was genuine. I smiled, feeling the warmth of something I hadn't felt in years. Respect. The final entry. That night, I opened my black notebook for the last time. On the final page, I wrote, "They called me obsolete. They tried to bury me. But I was not the seed. I was the fire. And from my flames, I rose again." I closed the book, placed it on the shelf, and poured myself a glass of wine. The world outside glittered with possibility. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't just surviving. I was living.